activist with Jorge Martinez. Jorge Martinez is a sophomore and queer Latinx community activist that aims to empower all persons to rise up and make their voices heard. Jorge loves to read, enjoys anime, and has 3 cats.
Hello. Is it okay if I go ahead and get started?
Yep.
Okay, great. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Well, before we get started, I'm gonna put this in the chat. I would really appreciate if you guys can go ahead and fill out this form while we wait for everyone to join and all that good stuff. So I'll give you a little bit of time while we wait. I got a couple of responses, some really good song recommendations that I'll definitely listen to afterwards. Just like 1 or 2 more minutes. All right, I got a couple more. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's get started. Oops. Wait, yes, I forgot. Thank you so much for filling out the form. And now you get a special prize, a virtual high five. You know, like a little, yeah, thank you. Thank you. You know, we're all through Zoom and all that, but thank you for reciprocating the high five. Okay, now let's get started. So here's a little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Jorge, but you can call me George. My pronouns, I can go either by he, him, his, they, them, their. I'm a sophomore and I have 3 cats, one of which is sleeping right behind me on my desk. I really started my activism experience when I became the president of my school's Gay Straight Alliance. I really helped to fight for like education and an LGBTQ plus inclusive curriculum. And like I come from a very discriminatory community. So I really found the need to like raise up and use my voice, which with the help of some teachers and the help of some friends, we've really been able to make progress, and I would love to share what I've learned so far. Okay, now here comes the academic and cool stuff. Let's talk about civil disobedience. I know we're all like, it's Saturday, I know, but who would volunteer to want to read the definition? Anyone? Go ahead and just unmute your mic if you like.
Yeah, I can read it. Civil disobedience, the refusal to comply with certain laws or to pay taxes and fines as a peaceful form of a political protest.
Yeah, so basically civil disobedience is just a form of protest. You know, for example, we have seen a lot of civil disobedience. We've seen protests left, right, and center. It is important to clarify that civil disobedience is not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just basically saying you're standing up to the government. What is that? In its essence, is a protest. But here's some questions when we learn about civil disobedience that are important to mention. When is civil disobedience the right choice? And how do you decide what laws to disobey? And this leads to the follow-up question, what are the correct ways to practice civil disobedience? Some of these questions our country has really faced these last couple of years. And hopefully we can answer some in this session. Okay, well, the civil rights movement was a gigantic form of civil disobedience. You know, Jim Crow laws in the South essentially were the law of the land, you know? And so here we're a gigantic group of people that basically said, you know, this isn't right. Something has to change, and they led that movement. Some even argued that the civil rights movement has never ended. But now let's hear, I know it's super cool because it's a YouTube video, but let's hear Dr. King's thoughts on civil disobedience. Just something to keep inside you guys' minds when you watch this video. What does it mean for you personally to protest, you know? How do you know you're doing the right thing? And here's like the teacher part of me, of like vocabulary, what is a moral obligation? Because Dr. King mentions it in the video. It is pretty old. It's from Meet the Press, which is really cool if you're like a giant, well, I was nerd. Being nerd is cool, like me. So let's watch the video. Oh no. Excuse the Elmo.
Now back to Meet the Press. Please remember, questions of our panel do not necessarily reflect their own point of view. Here is your moderator, Ned Brooks.
Resuming our interview, our guest today on Meet the Press is Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., who is in San Francisco. On our panel of reporters in Washington, D.C., you have just met Lawrence Spivak. Our other reporters today are Tom Wickert of the New York Times, James J. Kilpatrick of the Richmond News Leader, and John Chancellor of NBC News. We'll continue the questions now with Mr. Wicker.
Dr. King, you said a moment ago that Alabama was a state that gives respectability to the resistance and defiance of the law. And you listed an observance of the law by local agencies in the South as one of the cardinal aims that you were seeking. Yet on March the 9th, you led the second march on Montgomery in violation of a federal injunction not to march. You said that order was unjust, and John Lewis, one of your colleagues, said that the Negroes had a constitutional right to march, injunction or no injunction. Now, was that in keeping with the spirit of nonviolence and the restraint that has always characterized your movement? And could you explain your reasoning in defying the court order that day?
Well, let me say two things to that, Mr. Wicker. First, I did not consider myself defying a court order that particular day. I consulted with my attorneys before the march, and they stated that they felt that it was an invalid order, and that it would not be, that I would not be in contempt of court, violating the court order if I led the march to the point of having a moral confrontation with the state troopers at the point where the people were brutalized on Sunday. So I still don't consider that breaking a court order or breaking what I consider an unjust law. On the other hand, I must be honest enough to say that I do feel that there are two types of laws. One is a just law and one is an unjust law. I think we all have moral obligations to obey just laws. On the other hand, I think we have moral obligations to disobey unjust laws, because non-cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good. I think the distinction here is that when one breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust, he must do it openly, he must do it cheerfully, he must do it lovingly, he must do it civilly, not uncivilly, and he must do it with a willingness to accept the penalty. And any man who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust and willingly accepts the penalty by staying in jail in order to arouse the conscience of the community on the injustice of the law is at that moment expressing the very highest respect for law.
Well, I can sympathize with a good deal of that, but it seems to me you get into a very difficult point here at which one man's conscience is set, in fact, above the conscience of society, which has invoked the law. How are we to enforce law when a doctrine is preached that one man's conscience may tell him that the law is unjust when other men's conscience don't tell them that?
And I think you enforce it, and I think you deal with it by not allowing anarchy to develop. I do not believe in defying the law, as many of the segregationists do. I do not believe in evading the law, as many of the segregationists do. The fact is that most of the segregationists and racists that I see are not willing to suffer enough for their beliefs in segregation, and they are not willing to go to jail. I think the chief norm for guiding the situation is a willingness to accept the penalty. And I don't think any society can call an individual irresponsible who breaks a law and willingly accepts the penalty if conscience tells him that that law is unjust. And I think that this is a long tradition in our society. It's a long tradition in biblical history. Meshach and Abednego broke an unjust law, and they did it because they had to be true to a higher moral law. The early Christians practiced civil disobedience in a superb manner. Academic freedom would not be a reality today if it had not been for Socrates, and if it had not been for Socrates' willingness to practice civil disobedience. And I would say that in our own history, there's nothing that expresses massive civil disobedience any more than the Boston Tea Party, and yet we give this to our young people and our students as a part of the great tradition of our nation. So I think we're in good company when we break unjust laws, and I think those who are willing to do it and accept the penalty are those who are part of the saving of the nation.
Okay. Oh, sorry. So I want to have a discussion. I'm really thankful for like our small group here. So go ahead, speak up, unmute your microphones. What are your guys' thoughts on that? You know, what do you think for you? Well, let's answer some of the questions. What does it mean for you to protest? And remember, a protest can be a group protest, not paying taxes, whatever. Go ahead. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
To protest for me is like, I guess, like going against social norms.
A very excellent point. Anyone want to add on? Well, how about the second question? How do you know what you're doing is the right thing? You protest in whatever form that you protest. What makes it correct? What do you guys think?
I think part of it is like what Dr. King was talking about, consciously, like looking to your conscious and understanding that there are certain, I mean, I believe that there are certain, laws and things that have persisted and are perpetrated by the government that are like inherently not right. And I think when you think that, you can, do things against it. The point, I guess, there's kind of this blurry line of like, how much is taking things too far, and when do you, if you're protesting something and you're becoming, there's violent protests, like when does that take it too far? And it's kind of like, does the ends justify the means? I don't know. I think it's a really hard line to figure out.
Definitely. Thank you. You bring up a very good point of like inherent. Many times when we go protest or we want to say, I want to be an activist, we have an issue, right? I want to fight for X, Y, and Z. But it's important to build a base and important to kind of take a step back and like personally ask yourselves, why? Why is this incorrect? And why am I doing the correct way? And someone else mentioned like breaking the social norm. Exactly. Civil disobedience at its finest. Thank you, you two, for speaking up. I want to hear everyone. Next slide. Okay, Elmo is awesome. So I know what you're thinking. I'm young, I'm not an adult, I can't pay taxes. Why does any of this matter at all? Well, don't say that. Dwight will say, don't say that, yes. Like we've all know that Gen Z is very much so the voice of change. And I hope by the end of this presentation that we can really help you guys find your voice and help use it effectively. Because that is like a huge, huge issue that I see with many young activists of like, I want to make change, I want to fight, but I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know how I can do it. Okay, so here are some things that you can do right now. I know the election came and went, but if you are 16, you can become a poll worker. There are always future presidential elections, local, state elections. Just be sure to talk to your family about any safety concerns. You can make a petition. Some petitions on change.org have gotten millions of signatures. There's also an official White House petition that if it gets, I believe, like 100,000 signatures, it is mandatory for a White House response within a certain amount of time. You can call your local officials. And I know Gen Z can throw tear gas back at a police officer, but not pick up the phone. I ordered pizza yesterday, exact same thing. So scary, but just, you can call your state senator, your state representative, you can even call the president. He might not answer personally, but you tried. You just have to voice your opinions. But number one thing is to be informed. We have to build that strong base. You can go with isidewith.com/polls to find different political issues. I really love like Snoops, I believe it's called, of like where it shows different issues and it shows false, or this is true, or I love during presidential debates when there's like a fact check, because you have to stay informed, you know. I know every one of you is smart, you know, but we all need to keep up with the latest. Which leads me to my second point. I know each and every one of you have a phone or has some kind of device, you know. I want you to open up the news app. Here's my phone. I love this app. I have so many like different recommendations and I love it. So open up, even if it's for like the first time and it shows you the introduction scene, open it up and just explore for a bit. Okay, so after you've hopefully done that, now I know we all have social media, you know, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, that's not social, MySpace, whatever, you know, we all have social media. So I want you all to open up whatever social media you prefer and, you know, follow some news sources. So here are some news sources that you can follow. Politico, The Atlantic, New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian, CNN. Now this is pretty cool. However, it is very biased, I would suppose. So be careful with that. But follow it. And if you can, I would like you to hold it up against your screen and show proof. Thank you. Like for example, today, like around 10:30, I opened up Instagram and I found on the Guardian's website that I follow, or page, sorry, and I found out the results of the election. You know, social media is a huge part of our lives. So why not mix news and all this stuff? And also, it's good reading, you know? It's nice to take your mind off the drama of like petty stuff and focus on the drama of the country. That's a joke. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay. I'm proud of everyone becoming an informed person, an informed voter. Okay. So now, if you have Twitter, it's okay if you don't. Now we're going to be talking about group protests. So I would like you to open Twitter and I would like you to follow these two kind of like organizations. BLM Chi, and then at CAARPRN OW, or like now. These frequently post like flyers and locations of future protests. So now as we like go on and talk about group protests, you can know where to actually go, you know? Like, see, yeah, I open up Chicago Alliance, first thing, a protest, pinned to the top. Awesome. Okay. Now let's go on. I want you to ask yourself, you know, like I said, we've seen a lot of protests, everything from a single individual holding up a sign to thousands, millions holding up multiple signs. Okay, ask yourselves, why is a group protest more likely to create change than an individual one? And here's some really like historic photos of like the Women's March of 2020, the March for Our Lives. March for Our Lives, as we all know, was really like a youth-led movement. So don't ever say that you cannot do anything. Yeah. Does anyone want to give their thoughts? Like, why? It's generally a good question. Like, why?
I think like because when there's one person, yeah, you're gonna hear them, but like you're just gonna choose to ignore them. But when there's multiple people, this huge group, you're gonna hear them because they're gonna make their voices heard. They're gonna do things and not just gonna speak. Like with the protesting, and I mean like the riots, they were bad, but like they got the message out and like they got it on the news and people heard them.
Exactly. Yeah. Is there anyone else want to add on?
think part of it is also that, like, I mean, we live in a democracy, and so the people in the streets are the people who are voting, and it tells you what people care about. And if just one person is protesting, or if, you know, people are posting on social media but not necessarily taking action, then it doesn't show the same concern. And when you have people in the streets everywhere in every city all across America, those are the people who are going to be voting. And it's a really telltale sign of like what voters care about and how riled up the
Yeah, definitely.
is.
Yeah, you both bring up really good points. Anyone else? Come on. I know you all have big, amazing things to say, but it's okay if you don't. This is a safe space. Okay, well, yes, you both bring up very good points. And I would like to bring up the example of Barack Obama. You know, when he was first running, even though he's running as a Democrat, he opposed gay rights, opposed LGBTQ plus rights, which sounds very surprising because in 2015, this was like a couple years after his first election, gay marriage was legalized by the Supreme Court. But you know what changed? Is the mind, the people. You know, there is like a popular opinion, like the general consciousness of a nation. At that time, it was still like, no, gay rights aren't necessarily a thing. Now, 10 years later, so much has changed. Who has changed it? Well, the people. They bring attention to these issues and also make it on the minds of elected leaders. You know, if I'm an elected leader and I don't support an issue, but my constituents do, I'm not going to hold my job next election. So it's very good to like get out, voice your opinions, call, very scary, but call and voice your opinions and just let your voice be heard. So now let's look at it like a very academia way. Researchers looked at very successful movements in countries all around the world, and they found a phenomenon called the 25% phenomenon. So the questions that they asked were, what percentage of a country's population is needed for a movement to be successful? You know? And the answer was 25. If 25% of a country is able to agree on something and advocate for change, civil rights, Black Lives Matter movement, women's rights, then that's enough of a group of people to try to influence other voters. You know, 25% of 316 million in the United States is a huge number. But eventually it will reach the media, and maybe people with moderate views will change their mind. And really, everyone it would now be brought into the public consciousness, again, echoing Dr. King's famous words. They also found that nonviolent protests are more successful 52% of the time compared to violent ones. You know, as much as like attention violent protests bring, Dr. King was always an advocate of civil protests, of peaceful protests. And actually, if I remember correctly, there's a quote of him saying that riots are the like effect of an unheard people, of anger. Well, that anger can only be remedied by change. Okay, now this is a very interesting graph by the New York Times. This happened like during the very center of the Black Lives Matter movement earlier this year. Which feels like a decade ago, I know, but still. So look at the support for Black Lives Matter over the year. And now look at it all the way to the right. That's a 28 point difference in literally less than a month. Why? Well, going back to the 25% phenomenon, you know, voicing your opinions, getting out really makes a difference. And it did. Now 28% of the population believes and rallied behind BLM, which eventually through time will only continue to grow exponentially into more and more and following that 25% phenomenon. Don't ever say that you can't make a difference. Like look at all these. I have found so many articles of the effects of Black Lives Matter movement and that it did not fit on the slide. Okay, now we've built a strong base Now let's actually get to like, how do I protest? Well, before, that's a very interesting thing that we want to get to, but first we need to ask ourselves, well, what's holding me back? I want to help, but my parents don't let me, or I don't have time with school, or I don't even know where to start, or I'm scared. All of these are perfectly valid personal constraints. My hope is that we can help each other to kind of like work through those personal constraints. You don't have to be an activist. You do not have to be out there every single time rallying. There is no one definition of an activist. An activist can literally be a person holding up a sign with your opinion, with your issue that you're advocating for, and that could be a protest, Yeah, like I said, these constraints are not your fault. It's perfectly human. Well, let's kind of start brainstorming some solutions. Okay. So for this exercise, I want you to identify these 2 people who will be willing to attend a protest with you. A friend, a pastor, a pet. I've seen pets at protests, which is really cool. So keep it in mind. I want you to identify these 2 methods of how you would keep yourself safe during protests. It is kind of an uncomfortable truth where protests, especially a large protest, can be dangerous. Whether that be because we're in the middle of a global health crisis, or maybe the possibility of like anti-protesters clashing. I want you to identify 2 methods of how you would potentially keep yourself safe. And finally, it's always good to have 2 arguments for why you should be able to attend a protest. If like your constraint is someone like a parent or an adult not letting you, well, just come up with 2 really well-formulated arguments, and hopefully we can change their mind. So I'll give you a second, but let me give you example. So for me, it would be my 2 cats. I would have to choose between the 3. I'll probably take the baby one. The 2 methods for me, I would wear a mask, as you like always should, and I would make sure to leave by 6 p.m. That way I can be home by around 7, And then I would argue to my parents, or I'd argue to anyone preventing me, well, I want to be a part of a social change. This is a really big issue. This is a really big deal, really critical moment. We all need to help and do our part. My second argument would be, protest provides valuable life skills, maybe more like the college resume, it looks good on it, stuff. Would anyone be willing to share some of theirs? It doesn't have to be all 6 of this, but I'm very interested to hear you guys what you guys are brainstorming. I'd love to hear your thoughts. This is a safe space, so no worries, no judgment. No one? Really? Perfectly okay if you guys don't want to share. But I hope at the very least you guys, go ahead.
Share if you'd like.
Thank you.
For 2 people, I'm thinking of 2 friends for safety methods. One thing I think that you can do is like if you're in a large crowd is kind of be like by the side, or like suss out like where you can get out quickly if there's violence. Also, I think sometimes it's not always safe to have like your phone with you or your phone like live, because there are a lot of tracking things, and depending on like what type of protest it is, you might want to put your phone on airplane mode so you're not like tracked or things like that. And then for arguments as to why you should attend a protest, I think the first one is just like you kind of said, I want to be a part of social change, but also like depending on what the issue is, like why you're passionate about that issue, and then the second, like why it affects you, and also like all the evidence that you gave about why protests are actually successful, and it is like one of the things that we can do as civilians to be involved in the political process.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else? Anyone would like to add to that? Okay, well, keep it in your mind because it's very important. Okay, so I kind of forgot about these gifts, but you now know civil disobedience. You know the power of voice, you know a little bit about individual protest, why group protest works. You've brainstormed some personal constraints, and you've also brainstormed some solutions for it. Now let's actually put it to good use. You know, a big part of activism is experience. You can be the smartest academically, but once you get there and do a protest, you still need some street smarts. So I love this word, passion projects. I want you guys, in the remaining time that we have, which is about like 20-ish minutes, I want you guys to start working on some passion projects. Your passion project must be something that you're passionate about, hence the name. Something that you can like affect change in, doesn't matter how small or how grand, and something that you have the determination to see change in. So here are some ways that you personally can make change. You can raise awareness. This could be through PSAs, to flyers. You can make a beautiful artistic expression and hang it. You know, raising awareness really helps like 25% phenomenon and get into the public consciousness. Second thing you can do is try to help build support. Like I said, petitions, you can do fundraising. I remember as a kid, I would sell those chocolates. You can do even event organizing, probably virtual, but events nonetheless. You can use the media. This is a perfect way to try to really do everything to raise awareness and to build support. You can do a social media campaign. You can write an op-ed. Medium is a perfect website for that. Or you can even do a documentary for our videography folks out there. You can try to connect with your community. You can do protests, town halls, or you can even attend town halls, or you can do like an email letter campaign to your community or to like local officials. Or for those who are very interested in the legislative process, you can directly influence policy. This would include meeting with lawmakers. Doesn't matter if it's like state or even the president of the world, who knows? You can meet with anyone. Hopefully they can hear, or even if it's something simple of like writing an email or calling them. Scary, yes, but I believe in each and every one of you. You can attend public hearings. These might be virtual now. You might have to check with your individual local community, but you can attend like town hall, you can attend referendums, you can attend anything that local officials are asking the public for help or for information on, you know? So here's my example. So for me, say I wanted to raise the minimum wage for $15 per hour, which is a very cool thing to do for all of us. So 2, I do a report on this issue. I look up a bunch of articles, identify where progress has been made, and like what work is left to do. For example, I believe Florida is a state that now is working towards $15. You know, progress has been made there. How do we get it for the rest of the country? That sort of stuff. 3, I asked some of my close friends, some of my homies, maybe non-feline at this time, if they would be willing to help out. I can create a Twitter campaign to raise awareness and basically, you know, like those fancy aesthetic posts, maybe do something like that of why we should raise the minimum wage. And finally, I can send emails or letters or even call any legislators and urge them to raise the minimum wage. We can do it kind of like a phone-based style with me and my friends, or I can do it individually and just voice my opinion. For those who are interested in the legislative process, we can even, you know, write your own policies. I apologize. For example, say you want to improve conditions for immigrants in ICE detention centers. It's a big headline in the news recently, and a very big goal, you know? Well, what can you do? Well, again, I can do a report. Building that base is very important, very crucial, where progress has been made, you know, and what's very much still left to do. Maybe I can reach out for an expert. You know, there are a bunch of organizations like Border Angels and San Diego's, or Red Cross Red Shield even, of like, what are the conditions? What is it like there on the ground? And I can set up an interview or even just like ask them a couple of questions through email. Who knows? You know, what I've learned is that a lot of people are willing to hear you if you just try. You know, these local officials might seem scary, but honestly, they represent people like you. So why wouldn't you want to reach out? Then I can create a policy, arguing how the government should treat people, you know, how would it be funded and how it would be fully enforced and executed through. You know, I can say, well, ICE needs to set up an own organization within itself to ensure that the conditions are up to par or like very humane. And then I can reach out to a federal legislator or even state or local and propose my policy to them. Send it through email, I can call them, set up an interview. This is kind of like more like a lobbying, you know? I want change. I will try to lobby my local officials for it. Okay, so now this time is all yours. I have a brainstorming doc. I will put it in the chat right now. I want you to fill it out and stick to it. And I am here if you need any help. But before we really mobilize, here are some universal truths. First and foremost, thank you all for being here. Thank you for like taking some time out of your Saturday. I really appreciate it. Remember, you are amazing and that you are always a force to be reckoned with. And I love America's Got Talent. So, okay, so thank you guys for filling out the form at the beginning of class, or I was gonna say class, no. Here is a Padlet. I will put it in the chat. So Padlet is kind of like a mind mapping activity. Oh, I'm sorry, someone put something in the chat. Is NPR a good source to follow? Yes, NPR has a long history of, you know, impartiality and kind of just being neutral. Same thing with like the AP, the Associated Press. NPR is definitely a good source, and they have some amazing podcasts. I definitely recommend. So here is the Padlet. Go ahead and click on that link. And I believe I'm still sharing my screen. So it kind of looks like this, you know? Start brainstorming and use the donuts for your inspiration. And after you're done with that, try to aim for like 2 or 3 post-it notes on the digital Padlet. After you're done with that, you can then actually work on this document that I've written. Kind of like a rough draft to try to help you a template. I will also put in the chat for anyone who is ahead. Fill it out. I can open it. So this is link view only, apologize. So, go up here in the top left corner, make a copy, and then fill it out yourself. And if you scroll to the second page, here's my example to try to help and guide you. I am here. If you guys have any questions, if you guys want to talk, but this is really your time, you know? We have 15-ish minutes. I really would like for you to take what you've learned. If you have any questions or any clarifying questions, or even if you want to talk, I'm here. We're all here. And I'm thankful for everyone for coming. I see some additions to the Padlet, which sounds very, yes, these are all amazing, amazing things. How is everyone feeling? You know, Saturday, you attended a key team workshop, which I'm very grateful for. And now you're filling out a passion project. So exciting. Oh my gosh, I love your cat, Joe. Oh, what's their name?
This is Nelson.
Hi, Nelson. I would show you my cats, but they're still sleeping after an hour.
I'm just gonna pop on and let everyone know we have 10 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Padlet and I see some amazing ideas. This is like really like issues that have become prevalent in today's day and age. And I think it's amazing to see young folks really like echo that. Pretty cool. How is everyone feeling about the passion projects? How's that going? Any questions? So in the presentation, I included this website called iSide/code. I'm just gonna put it in the chat if anyone wants to safekeep it for any Future Information Quest. I think it's a really cool website to really like stay informed. I will share my screen once again, just to, like quickly show it. So I have it open, and it really like shows you, like, for example, I saw on the Padlet some like women's rights. So here it shows you like what do really Americans think of it, and it shows you some different stances. So you can really like take a look at it and think, well, what are fellow people like saying? I think it's really, really cool. And there's also another website just like this. If you can give me a second, I will definitely find it. I found it. So this one is called Snopes.com. I will put it in the chat again. So for this one, let me share my screen once more. This one is pretty, I think, in my opinion, much cooler because it shows you kind of like fact checks. So you can, there's a bunch of different issues. You can like, we're in the day of social media, there are a bunch of like fake and falsified news. You can come here and just like read, and it tries to really be nonpartisan, and it tries really to give you the most information, and it shows you different stances too. So if I, click on the show. So for example, I can do gay rights. Or, sorry. Oh no, my computer is freezing. Let's see, there's like a bunch of falsified claims, like did Biden say Christian violates LGBTQ rights? And you can really just click on anything and it'll show you, which I think is a really good like and helpful fact check, because if it's not from a credible news source, if it's just like from a meme, I've seen some of those, really do not believe it. Like, do your own research if you have to. There have been intelligence reports that show that adversaries have been trying to send misinformation and disinformation through memes targeted at youth. So that's why I had everyone follow like credible news sources. NPR, Politico, my personal favorite, The Guardian. BBC might also be a really good one, mainly because they are British, and so they don't really have like any personal things in United States politics or issues. So it's really helpful to see through like a non-American perspective to what's like happening, you know? Like, it's also really important to be aware of like we are global citizens. We don't just belong to the state of Chicago or the state of Illinois or the US. We belong to the world. Yeah, so last like 5-ish minutes. Any final thoughts? What do you guys think? Well, how about this? How is everyone feeling? No? Good, yay. Thumbs up, sideways, no? But it's good to see some thumbs up. Yeah, it's Saturday. You know, kind of like Friday, but Saturday. So it's really, it was really, really cool to see each and every one of you. I really hope that you learned to like effectively use your voice. I really hope that the template and the Padlet really help you to try to gain like a more narrow focus on what I work on. And I hope to see you in fellow protests, you know? I hope that, you know, you continue fighting for the things that you believe in, and that you take a moment to step back and ask, you know, why? Why am I doing this? Why do I believe in this? Why is what I'm doing is correct? Keep staying informed. Never not be informed, because information is such a powerful tool in this day and age of like fake news and disinformation and misinformation. And finally, I think my last words are just, you know, don't stop. It's very cliche of like never give up, but change has happened so much in the last 50 years. I remember my middle school English teacher. She lived through a lot, and she said that when she was in college, that she truly did not believe that marriage equality would ever happen, that LGBTQ plus folks would ever attain rights. And look what happened 5 years ago. Change happens, and it happened so quickly, and it happens because of us. You know, I wish you much luck on your ambitions, on your hopes to be an activist. And I'm really, really thankful for each and every one of you who took some time out of this Saturday, really warm and weirdly warm too, the Saturday day, yes. Well, I think that's it from me. Thank you so much. And thank you for the Chi team folks who helped facilitate this and help and admit people. I'm really thankful. Oh,
Yeah, thank you for presenting to us. This was very informative.
yeah, thanks everyone. Bye.